Welcome to Revelation Unraveled. I'm your host, William Tapley, also known as the Third Eagle of the Apocalypse and the Co-Prophet of the End Times. This is my 9th program in my series on that amazing prophetic video called Gangnam Style. And I believe this is an end times prophecy from Enoch. And in my last video, we saw how the Antichrist will take over the world. And he does this not through military means, but by taking over all of the world's religions. And he combines them into a one world religion. And in this video, Gangnam Style, the Antichrist is portrayed by Psy, and the one world religion is portrayed by his girlfriend. Now in this program, I want to talk about the words, or the lyrics to Gangnam Style. And on the surface, it's a pretty ordinary love song, I guess you could say. It's about a guy who is trying to romance his girlfriend. But the hidden meaning, of course, is much different, because it is talking about the Antichrist and his bride, the one world religion. And the title of this song, as it is transliterated to indicate this hidden meaning, is Open Gangman Style. And of course, the gangman is the Antichrist. That's because he is the man of sin, the lawless one. As we go through the lyrics of this song, Gangnam Style, we will find 4 major themes. The first is that the Antichrist and his bride, the one world religion, are not what they seem to be. Outwardly, they are very moral and upright. Inwardly, they are immoral. And secondly, this will become apparent with the passage of time. And by the time the end times come, we will see how evil they really are. Third, we will see that the Antichrist and his bride, the one world religion, are very superficial. They prefer style over substance. And fourth, we will find that the Antichrist will rule the planet through his superior spiritual and mental capabilities. And now, let's see what the Antichrist will expect of his bride, the one world religion. A girl who is warm and humanly during the day. I think that means humanly as opposed to evil. And of course, during the day means before the reign of the Antichrist. In other words, when the religions are in the light. A classy girl who knows how to enjoy the freedom of a cup of coffee. That's kind of an interesting phrase. I think that's the only kind of freedom that the one world religion is going to allow. You're not going to have freedom of religion. And Psy continues, a girl whose heart gets hotter when night comes. Now the night is the end times. And this girl changes. Whereas she seems innocent before, she becomes an entirely different person after dark. A girl with that kind of twist. I guess Psy is saying that his girlfriend, the one religion, is going to be a twisted sister. So now how does the Antichrist describe himself? I'm a guy who is as warm as you during the day. In other words, before the end times, the Antichrist will also seem a very human type guy. A guy who one-shots his coffee before it even cools down. Well, that's kind of interesting. The Antichrist does not seem to be very much of the masculine type. He's not the type who is going to feed beer to his horses. Is he sort of a metrosexual, maybe a bisexual? I tend to think so. And the Antichrist continues, a guy whose heart bursts when night comes. That kind of guy. Well, we see here that the Antichrist also changes during the end times. Once his reign begins with the one world religion, he becomes a different kind of person. So after the song's lyrics introduce us to Psy as the Antichrist and his girlfriend as the one world religion, we come to the chorus, which is fairly simple and quite famous by now. beautiful, lovable. Yes, you, yes, hey, you, beautiful, lovable. Now let's go until the end. Well, what end are we talking about here? Of course, Cy is trying to have intercourse with his girlfriend, but that's not unusual as far as popular songs go. But as far as the end times prophecy of Gangnam Style, the end refers to Armageddon. And in this case, the Antichrist and the one world religion will rule the entire planet until Jesus returns. Now in the next verse, we see a little more revealing of this type of girl which Cy wants his one world religion to be. A girl who looks quiet but plays when she plays. In other words, there is a little deception here. The girl looks innocent, but what she does at the nighttime is not so innocent. A girl who puts her hair down when the right time comes. The right time is the end times. A girl who covers herself but is more sexy than a girl who bears it all. So we see a real deception here. She is outwardly a very sweet, innocent girl. But at the nighttime, in other words, in the end times, her morals are worse than a stripper. That's exactly what the lyrics are telling us. A sensible girl like that. So this is what the Antichrist considers to be sensible. To have a good outward appearance. To have the impression of holiness. And that's what the one world religion will be. It will have all the attributes of a true religion. But inside it will be immoral and corrupt. And now let's look at how Cy continues to describe himself. I'm a guy who seems calm but plays when he plays. In other words, the Antichrist is also going to put up a false front. He will also seem innocent and holy, but not so on the inside. A guy who goes completely crazy when the right time comes. Now, the right time is the end time, and that is when he rules the earth. Once he has fooled people into thinking he is an innocent person, then he goes crazy. Remember in the video Call Me Baby, where Carly Rae Jepsen says, "This is crazy," which also referred to the reign of the Antichrist. And think back to Nebuchadnezzar. His 7-year time when he goes crazy also refers to this end time period. So this is not unusual, this description which Gangnam Style is giving to the end times. We will go crazy. And Cy continues. A guy who has bulging ideas rather than muscles. That kind of guy. Well, this is exactly what I said in the last video. He is not going to rule the earth through military means. He is going to rule the earth through his mind, through his brain power. This is how the Antichrist will take over the entire planet. So up until now, you might say, well, Gangnam Style is just an ordinary song about seduction. The guy is trying to get his girlfriend to go to bed with him. Let's face it. But that is not the hidden meaning underneath. And these next lyrics tell a completely different story. And a lot of people have wondered why these lyrics are included. And I can tell you why. Because this video is about the revealing of the Antichrist. That is the only way these lyrics can be explained. On top of the running man is the flying man. And then Cy continues, I'm a man who knows a thing or two. So on top of the running man is the flying man. That is unique in all of songwriting history. But it does sum up the entire video as far as the revelation of the Antichrist goes. This is how the Antichrist will rule the planet. The running man is how previous dictators tried to take over. That is, through military means and through masculine confrontation. The flying man is the Antichrist. He is superior to the running man, just as the spiritual level is above the earthly physical level. This upper level is the level that the Antichrist will rule the planet. He will take over all the end-time religions, and he will merge them into one world religion. And this is how Gangnam Style is telling us that the Antichrist will rule the world. And as always, I offer a free copy of my book, Revelation Unraveled. For any of you who may be interested, you can write to the address you see on your screen, or you can send me a message to my YouTube channel.